Hello everyone, this is Scott Dudley from SaaS Startup Stories, and today my special guest is Ken Auer, who's based in Holly Springs, North Carolina, and he's the founder and CEO at Role Model Software. Welcome to the show, Ken. Are you ready to rock and roll?
Oh, yes. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. All right, so let's sort of start off right way back in the beginning, because I know you've been doing this for a long time, but let's talk a bit about your background and what got you interested in software at the start.
Well, believe it or not, I wanted to be a baseball player. I wasn't very good at it, so then I decided to be a baseball statistician. But what ended up happening was I had wrote a letter to the commissioner of baseball. He sent me, uh, a form letter probably. I didn't know as a teenager, but somewhere in there it mentioned something about computers, and I started looking into computers, and kind of rest is history. Just got into software and kept going.
So this is around the mid 90s you're talking about?
Oh no, that's late 70s, early 80s. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Back in the early Apple days with Steve Jobs almost. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. So
Absolutely.
yeah, tell me a bit about Role Model Software and the types of clients that you work with generally.
Generally speaking, we work with business to business clients, but every so often we've had clients who are reaching out to the general public. And a few years ago, um, we ended up starting our own SaaS through my son's interest in American Ninja Warrior. Um,
Ah, okay.
we started a thing called Ninja Master, which actually runs competitions, not on the show, but everywhere else where the sport is happening, both in the US and Australia and elsewhere.
Okay. Interesting. All right. So sort of if we go back to the beginning again, sort of what made you decide on building custom software for clients rather than sort of starting your own software-based company selling subscriptions like sort of what most people are doing these days? What was the sort of the main deciding factor in that?
Well, back when I started, there wasn't an option for SaaS really, but
Yeah.
just started working with companies out of college and joined a small software consulting firm in North Carolina. Started my own a few years later, and always just loved solving business problems. And I think that's the thing that I've seen over the years. My Not only my helping people solve software problems, but business problems. How do you put something together that's of value for the people you're trying to serve?
Yeah.
So whether that's a small group of business people or a larger set of consumers, it's different. And now we're finding ourselves serving clients who are selling software as a service to their clients, even if it's a small niche business.
Okay. Interesting. So you must have a pretty large background in coding then. Obviously, you must have done lots of coding courses and lots of experience with coding.
Absolutely. Well, in went I got a computer science degree in the early 80s, and stumbled upon Smalltalk, which was kind of the introduction to object-oriented programming.
Okay.
Moved on from that to Java to Ruby. Done some work with uh, Objective C. Actually, that was a loop all the way back because that was one of the first languages I learned. And then when Steve Jobs decided to use it at Apple, came back and around on that and do a lot of JavaScript these days.
Okay, yeah. So I mean, someone like myself, who I very, very, very basic coding skills with HTML and CSS and stuff like that. But I mean, do most of the coding languages, do they have things in common, or are they all very different from each other? Or I mean, talking to a complete beginner about this sort of stuff.
Every once in a while, we find some language that kind of comes up that is a bit different, but most of the mainstream languages used for um, software these days all have very similar features. It's just really a matter of how much strong typing they offer versus weak typing. Like JavaScript, everything is pretty much an object uh, of some sort. And in other languages, you have to be much more declarative. But TypeScript is moving into JavaScript now too. So the variations aren't that large. Once you've been doing it for a few years, you can pretty much
Yeah,
pick up a new language pretty quickly. It's really what libraries are available and what are the conventions that change.
yeah, fair enough. Makes sense. All right. So how have you observed software changes from, say, 20 years ago to today? What are the biggest differences from now to back then?
Well, I'd say the biggest differences now is just all the open source software that's available, and you're not starting with a small library of code to start with. And I think that's both been good and bad. At this point, you find a lot of people that every time they want to do something, they go find some other software, and before you know, they're piling a lot of software on top of each other, much of which they really don't need. Um, Whereas, in the earlier days, you had to build everything closer to from scratch. Um, so, if you're not discerning about what you're bringing in from the internet and from the open source world, often you're not really learning how to do some things that maybe you should have learned before you decided to use somebody else's software. And it's getting a much
Yeah.
bigger deal now to just maintain your software because of updates from all the libraries you're using. Um, Things can break over the weekend that you didn't touch because somebody updated one of their libraries,
Yeah.
or didn't, or somebody updated one but didn't update another one. So there's a lot more management of uh, what you're pulling in from elsewhere.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. All right. So getting into more sort of technical terminology, can you talk a bit about the importance of tight feedback loops from concept through to the ongoing support of software, and really sort of simplify it down as well?
Sure. Well, the problem is lots of times people learn how to code and they just build something and what I would call the happy path. You oh, when the user does this, then he goes to there, and then he does this, then he does the other thing. And then the reality is in the wild, people don't do things the way you think they're going to. So the feedback loop between the end users and even the people you're who are defining what you think those end users are, you really need to be. It's very important to get feedback and incorporate that back into the system. Even this weekend, the
Mm.
Ninja Master software that we support uh, put in a new feature. Everything looked good for a few weeks, and all of a sudden we found a border case that somebody used in the wild that we had to jump in and find that bug and fix it. And I've said many times, people, if you haven't supported software in the wild, you really aren't as good a software developer as you think you are, because you're going to find lots of feedback from people that are using your software that didn't do it the way you expected them to, and they have
Mm.
legitimate needs. And if you really want to support them and have a software that lasts, you need to be paying attention to what those significant needs are, and not just think that the users aren't smart enough to use your brilliant software.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess sort of making those assumptions can be killer, can't they? Really, it's sort of costly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So, why is custom software often a wise long-term investment rather than just trying to do it yourself? I mean, obviously, there'd be some people that would try to cut corners and save money and think that they can do it. But why would you recommend that that's not such a great idea?
Well, boy, there's all kinds of folks that I've met over the years who've lost a lot of money trying to save money, right? Whether
Mm.
they outsourced it to some cheap foreign place that offered cheaper dollars per hours, or the kid down the street who said they would do it, or the professional down the street who said they would do it on nights and weekends.
Yeah.
Um, they can spend a certain amount of money, eventually hit that roadblock. People can't respond. They don't have the experience of supporting software in the wild, and all of a sudden they have buggy software that they don't know how to maintain, and the people who wrote it have disappeared, and
Yeah.
they end
Yeah.
up in a bind. That's kind of tough. The other thing is that happens is sometimes people are they don't want to build custom software. They're afraid of it, and they buy some other package and then try to adopt their business to the software package, like large ERP systems, for example,
Yeah.
um, and end up, kind of doing contortions and spent time and money avoiding spending time and money on building a custom software solution that actually fits their business needs.
Yeah, I see. So they'd be better off just sticking with that in the first place. Yeah. Okay. All right. So how does role model software stand out from the competition?
Well, I'd say the biggest thing is that we have a pretty long track record of delivering. Um,
Yep.
we also, instead of promising the world for a fixed price, we tell people, no, there's no such thing as a fixed price software that's going to be bug free. What you really need to do is work with us and we manage the budget together. You say how much you're willing to spend. We give some kind of realistic expectations of what you might get for that.
Yep.
And as we go along, having that feedback loop all along the way, um, the trade-offs are being made by the person who's paying us and the feedback we're giving them. Well, I know you want this feature. We can do it very simply for in 2 hours, or we can do the very complex version in 2 weeks. Which would you like? Sometimes the 2 week answer is the right one. Sometimes the 2 hour one is the right one.
Okay.
But yeah, making those trade-offs is something that's very important while you're doing your development. And we don't just tell you, hey, we'll deliver the software for so many thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then when you get the delivery, you find out that it is or isn't what you wanted. You're with us all the way along the line, and there's no surprises.
All right. So it ends up being a bit more of a long-term sort of partnership. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, yeah. We
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
we really are software partners for the businesses we serve.
Yeah.
They tend to be with us for years,
Yeah.
coming back whenever they need something, and knowing that we're there when they don't, just in case something comes up.
So there wouldn't be any cases of just like it's finished, it's built, that's the end of it. That wouldn't really happen.
It Yeah, as I heard somebody one many years ago say, software is never done; it's just released.
Yeah.
Right. So once it's out there, people are going to use it. The world's going to change. We don't ship software into a static world, right? The world's changing all the time.
Yeah.
Expectations
Yeah.
change. Once you've used something, you've kind of gotten to the point on the horizon where now you can see farther. And if you think I'm going to write the software one time and I'm done, you're sadly mistaken.
Yeah. Makes sense. Okay. So with a bit of an eye to the future, where do you see role model software in the next 10 years or so?
Wow, that's if I had a crystal ball, I could figure out a lot of things. But
Yeah.
yeah, in the next 10 years, one of the things we've continued to do is just continue serving our clients for the long term. We're interested in companies that have long-term visions, the ones who think, oh, we're just going to build some software, ship it, and sell it to Google in 2 years or whatever. It does happen, but it's pretty rare.
Yes.
Back to
Yes.
my history in baseball, I tell people, look, for everybody that how many professional baseball players are there? Maybe 1,000 or so. Well,
Mm.
how many millionaire software guys are there? Probably less. You might have a better chance of being a professional baseball player than doing the. I did wrote some software, and 2 years later, I became a millionaire. So yeah, really, you have to look at it, the hard work it takes to build a business, and using software to leverage that business, building the expertise you need to actually put that expertise into software to leverage what you've known and bring service of value to other people. So that's something we've been doing for a long time, and we just believe that's going to continue. In fact, there's a whole lot of software companies that come and go. They last a few years and they disappear. We've been at it for 23 years now and plan on being a lot longer.
There wouldn't be many that have been around as long as you guys, would there, if any?
There's a few, but
Oh,
not too
there are a
many.
few.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah. All right. What advice would you give a new software company or employee?
um, Recognize you're in it for the long haul. You're going to learn. None of us know everything. Listen to your customers. Listen to the people who are telling you that things might be a little harder than you think. Don't believe your own propaganda, but continue to work hard and persevere.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. So, what are the biggest challenges that you currently face in your business?
Boy, probably the biggest thing is all the options people have out there, right? You can outsource to some foreign country. You can
Oh,
hire
yeah.
the freelancer. You can hire a big company. Often people hire marketing agencies because what they want to have is this, what they want to have is this great web presence, and they think the marketing agency knows how to do that, but they don't necessarily know how to build software. So really it's
Mm.
the confusion of what it takes to build sustainable software is probably their biggest challenge we face, because for every time we tell them something, there's 3 or 4 other people telling them something different who may not have the track record, but it sounds good to their ears.
Yeah, I see. Telling them what they want to hear. Yep, understand.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. All right. What are your favorite online tools and platforms that you use to run your own business?
Oh, wow. Well, certainly GitHub and, to manage all of our source code, and
Yep.
um, Heroku,
Oh yeah.
which is a great way to deploy software very quickly. We can deploy many times a day with a pretty seamless integration on top of uh, AWS. Those are the 2 biggest things we use in deploying software for ourselves and our clients. Um, then, as far as our internal tools, we use Harvest to track our time,
Oh yeah.
and we use a tool called 15.5, which basically keeps us in touch with all of our employees, what they're thinking, what they're up to, what the priorities are for the week. Because we always think we know, but sometimes when they write down what they think their priorities and we write down what we think, and we read what we think they are, sometimes there's a little disconnect, and we can get back to the feedback loop, right? We're
Okay.
never really out of touch with our employees who we think we know what they're doing. We're on top of that all the time, so that's been a great benefit.
Yeah. One thing I should have asked earlier is how many employees do you have?
We have 23, I think, full time, and then about another 10 that we work with partners.
Oh, okay, pretty big team then. Are they sort of spread around the globe, or are they mostly local to North Carolina?
About half of our folks are in North Carolina, and the other half are all on the eastern side of the U.S. at this point.
All right, so it's pretty much all US based then.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, what are you curious about or researching right now regarding software?
Augmented reality and virtual reality, and trying to figure out where they really fit in the business world.
Mm.
We've got a couple of applications that we've seen that will really work. We're actually building a dock designer right now for people who like to have docks on on the lake.
Mm.
Um, and what we're seeing is that we can use augmented reality to kind of design your dock and then go out in your backyard and or wherever your local lake is,
Yep.
and see what that dock might look like before you actually decide to build it. So therefore, you can make the modifications, etc. Much
Okay.
like Amazon's doing when you're buying furniture for your house or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but
Futuristic.
with although it's here,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
the key thing is people can get all excited about the technology, but if you don't have a good application that provides real value, um, it's just cool technology, right?
Yeah. I guess. Yeah.
Really the best way to apply those things. I think augmented reality is probably going to provide a lot more value than virtual reality in many cases. Um, just because augmented reality, you're dealing with, okay, I'm trying to make an improvement in my life in some way, shape, or form, and I'm seeing what this might look like. Whereas virtual reality, it's a lot of fantasy.
Mm.
It's not something it's clear what the value is going to be.
Yeah.
But in many ways, they can kind of merge. If you're building something in the built world, right, you can see what it might look like and walk around and move around it. But kind of the burden of having to put on goggles or whatever is just kind of a little bit extra work that a lot of people I don't think want to do. So it'll be interesting
Mm.
to how that technology advances
Yep.
5 or 10 years from now. Maybe we'll just be seeing holographs that we project rather than having to put on the goggles. Who knows?
Okay. Fascinating. All right. So, just to wrap up, where can people go to find out more about role model software?
Pretty simple. Rolemodelsoftware.com. will get you to our site. And from there, there's pointers to some of the products we built, like ninjamastersoftware.com and lightningcad.com, which is a framework we built for engineer to order businesses that I just mentioned that doc designer that we're building on top of that framework. And there's some other things coming out on top of that framework that we're not quite ready to announce yet.
Excellent. All right, cool. Thanks very much for being on the show, Ken. Really appreciate your time. Thanks for that.
We appreciate it, Scott. Thank you so much for having us.
You're welcome. Take care. Bye.